be feeling like I'm academics. Can't
Let's move on from there. We will get to Diddy filed an explosive letter and motion in court where essentially he wants the federal government to be sanctioned and to be reprimanded by a U.S. District judge, basically because he feels like the feds has tainted his, God-given right, or, right under, the law, that his discovery should, he has a right to a fair trial. And he feels like they have tainted that process with doing certain things that are interfering with him having a fair trial, including leaking the Cassie video. Actually, let me get into that right now, and we'll go through really quickly. I know this is some legal shit here, so we're going to go through it real. I have the document. By the way, thank you guys if you guys been rocking. Again, we went to a detour because of the J. Cole stuff, but, shit. We rather talk about that than some of these things respectfully. You get what I'm saying? All right. Oh, my God. Hold on. Computer acting slow. What the hell? I feel like my ad blocker be just fucking up. Here we go. Okay, here we go. All right. So there's a motion that was there's a motion filed that they want the judge to hear and reprimand the prosecutors, which is the United States of America, which is the AUSAs, right? And they're saying that these people have tainted the prospect of this trial by leaking discovery, and they're the only ones that can have it. And also their investigators have made comments to the press that have prejudiced this whole case. So they filed a motion to say the government is playing a effed up game. And they submitted it's called memorandum in law in support of the motion to basically just explain why they are filing the motion, right? So, by the way, I'm sorry for the sniffling, chat. I don't know how the fuck I'm like mad nasally right now. Anyway, defendant Sean Combs moves for 4 forms of relief related to what the defense feels was a series of unlawful government leaks, which have led to damaging, highly prejudicial, a pretrial publicity that could only taint the jury pool and deprive Mr. Combs of his right to a fair trial. Okay? Mr. Combs requests, number 1, a evidentiary hearing to examine if the government has engaged in misconduct in connection with the leaks. Number 2, the discovery of emails, documents, and records in possession of the government, including DHS. By the way, they're thinking this is coming from HSI/DHS, Department of Homeland Security, and HSI, which is Homeland Security. What the fuck is HSI stand for? Homeland Security. I forgot what the I stands for. Yeah, so that's who they think leaked the Cassie tape. And then they want a gag order prohibiting the government personnel from disclosing any evidence or investigative material related to this case to any member of the media. And number 4, suppression of any evidence leaked by the government in violation of federal rule, blah, blah, blah. Now, this is important, okay? Diddy's lawyers are trying to essentially get the Cassie tape thrown out. How could they get the Cassie tape thrown out? They would have to prove, or at least have a judge agree with them, that this information that got leaked came from the feds. The purpose was to taint the jury pool, or taint the minds of how people perceive Diddy, which could taint his trial. And if that's the case, that evidence could be suppressed. Now, if he gets this motion granted, huge win. Because, again, even though the jury pool is probably seeing this, everybody in the world is seeing like this whole like Diddy beating up Cassie footage. But what it would do is that this footage can't be used to establish maybe the violent nature or the nature of Diddy, that might be someone who was, on the video, he's dragging her back to the room, which kind of corroborates the account that sex trafficking is, also having people, bringing people to places against their will, but also they can't leave because nothing that they willfully would want to do, they're allowed to do. So they want to suppress this evidence, right? Based on the fact they think the government leaked it. I don't know if they'll get proof of that, but they're trying to submit it, right? Anyway, they said the available evidence makes a prima facie, I don't know how to say that right, but I'm familiar with the term, that shows the government, primarily through DHS, has engaged in a 7-month campaign with 3 objects: prevent Mr. Combs from getting a fair consideration by the grand jury. By the way, remember, they leaked that during the grand jury, right? Or around the time the grand jury was convened. Preventing him from getting a fair trial. And 3, strategically leaking a confidential grand jury material information, including 2016 intercontinental videotape, in order to prejudice the public against and potential jurors against Mr. Combs. The government's scheme to undermine his right to a fair proceeding has several methods and means. First, there's been a steady stream of false and prejudicial statements made by DHS agents to various press outlets, right? Second, the agents engaged in a particularly brutal and public search of his homes, during which they handcuffed his innocent sons and then marched them before a news helicopter in the press. This is apparently an effort to convey that they had overwhelming evidence against Combs, justifying the public and brutal treatment of even his children, who was handcuffed and manhandled by federal agents with assault rifles. Third, the government employees have repeatedly leaked grand jury information and material suppressed to raise public hostility towards Combs in advance of his trial. The most egregious example is the leak to CNN of the 2016 videotape from the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. As detailed below, the CNN leak was but one of long and documented history of leaks and false statements with one purpose: to sabotage his reputation prior to trial. Why does it say to savage? Maybe that's a typo. Sabotage his reputation prior to trial. While the government misconduct in this case is particularly egregious, it's unfortunate that part of the trend in this district, the government has learned that it can strategically leak information with impunity. The court should exercise its authority to prohibit these underhanded tactics, which severely undermines a criminal defendant's right to have a fair trial. At the outset, the defense wants to be clear with the court as to what our theory is and what it is not. We do not contend the leaks were orchestrated by the U.S. Attorney's Office. Rather, we contend the false media statements and grand jury leaks were complained of. Complained of below were planned and executed by DHS, which obviously is that's the Department of Homeland Security. And as the parties develop more information in this regard, the court will see that the defense repeatedly contacted the prosecutor and stated in substance that their agents were leaking information to the press. Yet, regardless of what, if any, action of the U.S. Attorney's Office took, the leaks continued even until after the arrest. The reason a hearing is needed to determine exactly what DHS did and did not do regarding these leaks and what the U.S. Attorney's Office did and did not do to stop them. The evidence of the government misconduct is clear enough already that the court is justified in using its authority to craft appropriate remedies. He requests the court's order discovery and evidentiary hearing to investigate the government's misconduct. The abuse here is clear, but without a hearing, it would remain unknown how far the abuse reached. Okay, so what they're trying to do is kind of do what was done in the Alec Baldwin case. Alec Baldwin beat his case primarily because there was Brady material, right? So there was some material that probably could have worked in his favor that the prosecutors did not disclose to him. Because that evidence was suppressed. Well, actually, it was more than suppressed because the judge found that it was the prosecutors were in violation of his rights by not disclosing that information to him. They actually dismissed the case. The penalty was dismissing a case with prejudice, right? And with prejudice means you can't file again. So that's why Alec Baldwin is actually clear for allegedly killing somebody on the set of a movie. Anyway, so they give a whole background, but they're basically saying that the government leaked the shit. It's 17 pages. And yeah, that's the whole thing. They believe that the government leaked a whole bunch of shit. So they're talking about if a person is not in law enforcement or to leak the videotape to a news source, that person would have sold the tape rather than give it to CNN. So they're making very clear distinctions. If this was not a law enforcement person, they would have just they would have sold it to TMZ. TMZ pays tens of thousands of dollars for the footage. And the fact it was leaked to CNN shows that the motive was not financial gain. CNN doesn't necessarily pay, or we don't know them to pay for that footage. It shows a motive to damage his reputation without remuneration, a motive held by the federal agents. Fourth, the timing of the leak suggests government involvement. The tape was leaked on one of the few days the Trump trial was not being held, as Barron Trump and Donald Trump's youngest son graduated high school that day with his father in attendance in Florida. One of the more contentious issues in the Trump trial was whether the trial was going to be stayed so Trump could. So basically, they said that the whole week everyone was covering Trump. Trump gets a day off from court to go to a graduation, or that was supposed the day he was going to go to a graduation. And essentially, that's when they chose to leak the footage, which means that it's the government who probably already is, very aware of what's big in the media, and they wanted to make the biggest splash. Okay. Eventually, the court announced that May 17th would not be a trial day, blah, blah, blah. All right, cool. The video was leaked to CNN for one reason alone, to mortally wound the reputation of or the prospect of Sean Combs defend himself. Okay, good. All right. So, yeah, they essentially want, and it said requested relief. They want evidentiary hearing. Second, they want the court to order that relevant discovery, which means emails and text messages from any government attorneys or law enforcement agents regarding these leaks should be, put out and or at least, reviewed. Third, the court wants to immediately enter order forbidding government attorneys to speak on this further to the media. And I think the fourth one is to disqualify and suppress the evidence included. And this is the biggest thing. They want the 2016 video of Diddy beating up Cassie to be suppressed so it can't be used in the trial. So, they're trying. They definitely are trying. Will that work? I got to imagine, whether it's DHS, we all know the Southern District of New York don't play. It's not their first rodeo. If they leaked this footage, which, at this point, we could probably assume that maybe they did, they knew exactly what was going to happen in court. So they probably did it in a way where they're not going to be caught with their hand in the cookie jar. So, again, Diddy's lawyers filing the motion to say, let's punish him for it, but how could they prove the government did it? Who knows, right? But in an interesting note, did y'all see this, chat? So, Alex Spiro. Remember we looked at Piers Morgan, who admitted, right? Look, Piers Morgan admitted that Beyonce. He admitted that Jay-Z and Beyonce's team reached out to him, and essentially he was apologizing, right? Like, he literally apologized to Jay-Z and Beyonce for, really platforming. Let me see. For platforming Jaguar Wright. And let's see if we could figure this out. Why my computer be just, every time it has to use this fucking ad blocker? Sorry.